The Electoral College may be a historical footnote soon as Virginia joins the Popular Vote Interstate Compact. I think that's what it's called. Virginia House passes bill to give electoral votes to popular vote winner. My understanding is that they're now 61 electoral votes away from negating the Electoral College, which will be one of the stupidest things Democrats can do. In fact, Republicans have actually cheered for this idea, because there are millions of Republicans in blue states whose votes don't matter. Now, it's unpredictable. We don't know exactly what will happen if the Electoral College gets wiped out. But one thing I can tell you might happen is civil war, because you're going to have 3 urban areas dictating everything. Why bother campaigning all over the place when you have to when you only need the popular vote? You go to big cities, do your big city interviews, get your digital message out, and don't worry about going to the small towns and talking to small town folk. It's why the Electoral College, or one of the reasons why it was formed in the first place. Democrats don't seem to understand this, and they're only complaining because they lose. They don't seem to realize we don't live in a direct democracy. We live in a constitutional republic, which means the popular vote count is less relevant to the jurisdictions who are voting as members of a union. But I'm preaching to the choir, man. Y'all know this. I want to show you something. It's kind of derivative of the video I did on 4 p.m. about McGovern in California and why I think this is a huge, huge blunder. Let's read the story from CNN Politics. They say, the measure HB 177 would look to incorporate Virginia into the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, an agreement established by each participating state's laws to put its electoral votes toward the winner of the national popular vote instead of the state's own popular vote. This idea that some American citizens should have more power than other American citizens to choose the president of the United States, I frankly find profoundly offensive. Mark Levine, the sponsor of the bill, told CNN over the phone, because apparently they don't realize that this is not a direct democracy. It's a constitutional republic. It's not about people having more power in their vote than other people. It's about jurisdictions, regions, and resources being factored in. Now, I think it is true. It's kind of silly that some areas of big empty space get some representational power. But let's be real. Wyoming has 3 electoral votes. No, are you really concerned about that? California has 55. You still have major advantages in the system. Now, they argue people only campaign in some states. Have you looked at history? Have you actually read the vote counts for other states going back to other elections? They don't realize that California before 1992 was a red state. They're making a huge mistake. Let's read more. Levin noted that presidential candidates tend to campaign only in a handful of bellwether states rather than visiting all of them, a strategy that tends to slight heavily Republican and Democratic states whose votes are less likely to be put up for grabs. Levin hopes that such a bill will bring out voters who feel they are ignored in major election cycles and improve election day turnout. It will. But that means that if you have, Illinois, let's say that in Wyoming, there's a big mine discovered of a glorious rare earth of some sort that's needed for some production. And the production facilities are headquartered in Illinois. Illinois, with their millions of citizens, vote for, send a senator or Congress people who pass a bill saying we should have access to Wyoming's resources. And we stripped away Wyoming's access to vote against these things. Now, it is still true. These things can happen. But the general idea is based upon the fact that jurisdictions that are smaller should be protected. Or I'll put it this way. I don't know if this is actually true of Benjamin Franklin, but the saying is democracy is 2 wolves and a lamb deciding on what's for lunch. A republic is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. The majority can absolutely oppress the minority, and it fluctuates. We try to make this more difficult, and the Electoral College does this by giving weight based on certain areas. And just because you can stuff more people into your city or state doesn't mean that's good for the country that you can vote, because what you need to understand right now in the delegate count with Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders, Buttigieg is winning more rural areas than Bernie. Bernie's base is ideologically homogenous. That's dangerous because it could polarize and result in conflict. Buttigieg's base slightly smaller because it's rural, but encompasses many different communities. The Electoral College requires that someone actually be broad enough in their views to represent different groups of people to prevent conflict. Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles have basically the same opinions, but rural Wyoming and rural Ohio do not. If you can win the rural areas spread out across the country, even though there's less people, you are building up a broad coalition of disparate communities, preserving the strength of the Union. Without that, we end up with big urban districts always with their same generic homogenized opinion dominating. And then you'll have Wyoming conflicting, Ohio conflicting, Nebraska conflicting, and no one will agree. And you will shatter everything. The compact will go into effect only if the cumulative total of the state's electoral votes surpasses the 270 necessary for a majority, which would require states that voted for Donald Trump in 2016 to sign on. Levin also noted that the pact has a July 20th deadline in order to go into effect for November's general election. But I'll tell you what, man. If at any point Republicans take these states back, they'll probably just dissolve this agreement. It's one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. It makes no sense. It's short-sighted and a waste of time. And they're only doing it because they lost last time. Or it's because they don't like it's an excuse to win. That's really all it is. They don't complain when they win the Electoral College or when Obama does with a large margin. They don't care. It's only when they lose. It's an excuse. They say 15 states and the District of Columbia have joined the compact for a total of 196 electoral votes. They say most recently Oregon joined last June. If Virginia were to join with its 13 votes, that would bump up to 209, which would mean if Virginia does approve this, and they might not, 61 more votes. The campaign in 2020 may well come down to 5 or 6 or 7 states. That means the vast majority of Americans are left out of the presidential campaign. And we think that is wrong. That is insane and makes no sense. The only way that mattered is if people in California didn't vote at all. But guess what? If they didn't, then listen, man, they're acting like their votes don't exist. If you get rid of the Electoral College, the same argument could be made. It doesn't matter what happens because Los Angeles always votes for, the Democrats. Right. Literally makes no difference. The argument that only a handful of states matter acts as though you expect your state to always be blue and that the votes of the people in that state are irrelevant. That's not true. You're just blind to history and you can't pay attention. It is really frustrating how dumb everyone is sometimes, isn't it? Oh, look at this. Let me zoom in so you can see this better. Hopefully you can get the totals. It's formatted poorly. What can I say? All right. There we go. Okay, you can't see all of the numbers. Forgive me, it's zoomed in, but it cropped out. We can see the Republican and Democratic numbers, and I'll just read you the others. But I want to show you something important about California. In 1988, California was Republican with 5 million votes. Democratic with 4.7. Democrat had 4.7 million votes. In 1992, there was a major flip, mostly, in my opinion, I believe it's probably because of Ross Perot. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure 92 was Ross Perot. We then had another major independent push in 1996, once again, giving the win, or not necessarily. But if you add it up, so right here it says others, 21% of the vote. If that went to the Republicans, and it's no guarantee it would have stayed red. California has only been blue for the past, around 20 or almost 30 years now. It can change. It's not guaranteed. We can see as of 2016, you had 4.4 million Republicans and 8.7 Democratic votes. They believe this will never change. They believe they can hold this advantage. But right now, your argument about people's votes not mattering is somewhat irrelevant. Ignore the 2016 popular vote counts, and let's go down to the states and the states' ability to decide for themselves. And you will see 7% of the vote was others. There are a lot of people, and it's hard to predict, I'll be fair. There are a lot of people in California who are Republican who have stopped voting. Notice that in 88, there were 5 million. With population growth since 1988, you'd imagine today it should at least be bigger, right? But it's not. Now, it's possible a lot of people left. It's possible younger people are more Democratic, sure. But the number should, you could argue, there's a lot of reason why it should be up, but it's not. Well, here's one prediction I would make. The idea that these states, your vote doesn't matter because your state is guaranteed to vote a certain color. It's true. I mean, even I'm in New Jersey. I don't care. New Jersey's always blue. It wasn't always. Voted for Nixon in 72, huh? Because people feel like their votes don't count, they don't vote, but your vote does count. Because of these numbers, California being 61.48% Democratic, Republicans don't vote. But what do you think would happen if you go for the popular vote and all of a sudden the Republicans in California who feel like they'll never beat 8 million started voting? It's possible a lot of Democratic voters, too, also don't vote because they're like, I'm going to win anyway, so who cares? But I think, it's my opinion, I could be wrong. There are more blue state Republicans that don't vote than red state Democrats that don't vote. Wyoming, for instance, is small. 500,000 people live there. Let's say 10% of the population is Democrat and doesn't vote. Congratulations, you found yourself 50,000 votes, Democrats. Good job getting rid of the Electoral College. Let's say 10% of California is Republicans that don't vote. Well, the Republicans just found themselves 3.5 million votes. You see how this works? In a small red state, Democrats might not vote. I get it. In a large blue state, Republicans might not vote. I think it's fair to say that will swing on them so fast. And this is partly why there have been a few Republicans calling for getting rid of the Electoral College as well, because they're looking at Texas potentially flipping and saying, we can maintain 5 million votes. Might as well go for it. You'll also light up a ton of voters who normally don't because they think it doesn't matter. It's true for Democrats, too. But here's what's going to happen. In New Jersey, where I live, people are going to say, New Jersey's always blue. We're going to win. I don't care. Then they're going to enact this coalition thing. And Republicans are finally going to go out and vote. And all of a sudden now they're going to find the Republicans have the majority because according to Gallup, America is a center-right country. That's why I believe, based on not just this, that a lot of blue state Republicans don't vote and that the numbers are fluffed for Democrats and they're making a huge mistake. But you know what? Far be it from me to tell you what to do. You do what you want. In the end, I don't care. If Republicans aren't going to come out and vote, then so be it. If they're not able to muster the support, well, then there you go. You got a challenge ahead of you, but I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. The podcast is up every day at 6:30 p.m. on all podcast platforms. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you all next time.